Sneeze on it, man.
Yeah. There you go. There you go. He's got it.
Fire! Nice.
Nice. That's cool.
Yay!
That's very cool.
The actual bow drill kit is actually pretty easy to make. It is something that requires practice and something that you know, is better if you have some basic knowledge of tree identification to begin with, because there's many different types of trees. You know, there's woods that are very soft, woods which we consider to be medium hardwoods, and very, very dense or hardwoods. What I look for if I'm collecting from the actual trees is I'm looking for two things really. I'm looking for a fireboard, which is going to be a dead branch, preferably on a tree, just so I know there's no moisture on it. And I'm looking for something that's going to be probably at least 2 inches in diameter, something that I can split in half and then flatten up the curved top or the convex top and flatten it a little bit. And I'll use that for the top of my fireboard. The part that I split, when I split it down the middle, the bottom then would naturally, you know, be the base or what would lay in the ground. For the actual drill or spindle, I might be looking on that same tree or a different tree that I think is a similar species or similar consistency. And here's where I'm just simply looking for a straight section of a dead branch that's going to be anywhere from 10 or perhaps 8 to 10 inches long. That is already the diameter that I'm looking for, so I don't have to do any unnecessary carving. The handhold or brace, which is on top holding it all in position, can be made out of wood, it can be made out of rock, and occasionally you may find something in the woods like a a skeleton of a small animal like a deer. And a bone socket from one of these bones makes a really nice handhold, because as long as you can control that top and keep it from moving around back and forth, it's going to work just fine. The actual bow is nothing more than what looks like to be a miniature bow for a bow and arrow, which consists of a branch that's roughly about maybe 2 to 3 feet long, at the most 3 feet long, that is about 1.5 inches max in diameter and has a slight curve to it. So the string then is loaded from on one end of the curve to the other end. And so you have a gap in between the string and the actual bow, and that's why the curve is kind of important. The spindle is shaved down to points on both ends. The top of the spindle, or what I choose to be the top of the spindle, I'm going to point that up pretty much, kind of like an upside down ice cream cone, I tell people, so that that tip will fit right up into the hole in my handhold and I don't have to worry about it moving out of there. The bottom of the spindle, I cut into, or I shave into a much more shallow point, and I'll make a notch in my fireboard, or I should say a depression in my fireboard, so that the bottom of the spindle will stay exactly where I want it. And after, of course, that's loaded onto my string with the bow and spun back and forth, I'm able to seat the bottom of that spindle in the fireboard. And once I get it seated and I have a clear impression of the diameter on the fireboard, then I'm going to carve a notch into that depression. The notch is roughly anywhere from 1/6 to 1/8 of a piece of pie, which most people have no problem visualizing it. So then when I put everything back together and I'm making my fire for real, and now of course I would already have my tinder off to the side, I usually put a small piece of bark or a dry leaf underneath the notch to catch the dust on. And then what I do is I get myself in a comfortable position. I start moving the bow back and forth, and as I get in a rhythm, I'll increase the pressure downward with the handhold, and it will cause the board and the spindle to start smoking. And as that happens, when you're getting smoke, little bits of hot wood dust from the spindle and the fireboard are getting sheared off under friction, and they start to collect and fall into the notch. And when I see that the notch is just about full, that's when I'll pick up the speed and try to increase the density of the smoke. That's kind of my visual gauge. And once I get the smoke really rolling out of there to where I can almost not even see the fireboard, I'll continue for another 10 to 15, maybe 20 strokes at the most, and I'll stop and I'll take a look at my pile of dust and see what I have. When I'm satisfied that I have a good substantial coal and that the wind's not going to blow it apart, that's when I'll pick up the little piece of bark or a dry leaf that it's resting on, and I'll pick that up and I'll very gently transfer that over to the tinder bundle and slide it into the center of the bundle. And then I look at it like it's a baby bird in a nest. You know, this little energy, this little spark of life, literally, you know, needs three things. It wants to stay warm, which is one of the things that fire needs, temperature. It needs fuel, which of course is my tinder bundle, and I make sure I have some nice fine fuel in there for it to consume right away so it can grow. And it needs oxygen, and of course the oxygen can be either in the form of my breath, or if it's a windy day, oftentimes I can position the bundle so that the wind blows into it and get it to burst into flame that way. Now all the while that I'm doing this, I already have my fire lay or my fire pit ready. When that tinder bundle gets ready to burst into flame, I want to be right by the little door that I've left for that bundle to slip into. And then I simply push the bundle in. I may have to get down, put my head sideways and blow on a little more to flare it back up if it comes apart and starts to go out. But usually there's enough heat in it by then that that's really not an issue. And if you've done all that correctly, you have a fire without a whole lot of effort. So there's more than just making a fire than just producing a coal and blowing a tinder bundle into flame. There's layers and layers of technique, variation, and probably most importantly, practice behind your success rate. If you don't have matches and you don't have a lighter, what are you going to do? You know, for me, yeah, you know, I love a lighter. I'm not a big fan of matches, and I love these magnesium ferrocerium bars. But I have a higher degree of comfort knowing that if I didn't have those modern conveniences, that I'm still going to be able to get a fire eventually. And so it's empowering. And you know, every chance I think that we as people have a chance to be less dependent and empowered, that's a win-win. That's a good thing.
Let's make it look so easy.